Let's have the conversation. Can't hurt to talk about it. Let's have the conversation. Can't hurt to talk about it.
Hey, what's up, wild animals, and welcome back to our YouTube channel.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Jared, and you are now watching the Ben and Jared Show. So, I'm not even gonna go through the spiel of it's been a while, because it's almost been 3 weeks now. But as you guys know, we've been really busy, been doing a lot of stuff, work and life and everything. Then we went and planted in my mom's garden.
Oh, yeah, we did.
So, we've been doing a lot of stuff here lately. So, we're gonna get back into the swing of things, try to post more regularly again. Today I thought it would be really important that we have today I thought it would be really important that we have a conversation about coming out. So I thought it would be really cool to have this conversation just because I know we usually do a lot more lighthearted, fun stuff on our channel, but we really want to take the opportunity to touch on things that we don't always get to talk about, and hopefully this will help some of you guys to understand us better and also to connect with us on a deeper level. So I think it'd be really important also in this video that we talk about the stark differences between coming out as a white man and coming out as a black man, and kind of what surrounds the two, seeing that we are in an interracial gay relationship. So do you have any thoughts before we get started, or anything you want to say?
I mean, coming out is such a heavy topic. And I hate that it's even a thing that people have to do, but then it's, it's just really heavy. So, it's important to talk about.
Yeah, I think so too. I think specifically for people to talk about in interracial relationships, because I think a lot of times your partner they can understand what it's like to come out, but they may not understand what it's like to come out in the skin that you're in. And so I think that's why it's really important we have this conversation. So, do you want to go first?
No, you go first.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. So, we all know what coming out is like, and we all know what our own particular stories are about coming out. Mine in particular was a really long story. So I'll try to keep it down to as short a story as possible, but make it all make sense. I've always known that I was different. I've always known that I didn't necessarily fit in all of the crowds of straight kids when I was younger. But it really didn't make sense to me until about the age of maybe 6 or 7, like that difference was as big as it was. I think the first time I actually really remember kind of knowing that I was different was I had a little girlfriend that lived down the street from my grandma's house, and I really liked her, and we never kissed or anything like that. We were just kids, we were dating, and I would go down to her house to play because they had a playground in the backyard, and there was also another neighbor on my grandma's street who was a young boy, and me and him were around the same age. We would play all the time. And I remember, even though I was dating her, questioning in my mind what it would be like if I wasn't dating her and I was dating him. And I knew that probably wasn't a normal thought for most kids, but I still couldn't correlate the two or really make sense of it. It didn't really hit me like boom with all the facts, like here's what it is, here's what you are, until I was in high school. I think that's really when I understood what gay was, what being queer was, what being different was. And so it was kind of confusing trying to navigate through what all that meant on top of being a black man or a black teenager at the time, coming up in America. So for me, it was really tough because I struggled right from the onset of when I knew that it was definitely that I was gay. I struggled because immediately my religion came into play, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. You know, everything that I know says this is wrong. I mean, because in the Black church, and let me preface this by saying it is not in all Black churches, and not all Black Christians think this way. But in the Black church, more often than not, it is, you are taught right from the onset of understanding what religion is, that being gay is wrong, and that God sees it as an abomination, and you're going to burn in hell for all eternity, and all these other negative connotations that come with the word being gay in the Black culture. So for me, it was an instant struggle right on the onset. And for those of you who are Black and gay, you understand what I'm saying. It was just a struggle right from the onset. And I struggled to decide whether being gay was really what I wanted to be. Because I already knew the pain and the stigma and the discomfort that came with being Black in this country. But then to add layers onto that of what it means to be gay and Black in this country, especially when I was a teenager, because there wasn't really much representation. Because I'm a little bit older than he is. I'll be 29 this August. And growing up, I didn't really see a whole lot of Black gay people. There weren't a whole lot of on-screen depictions of us and what we were like. And the ones that there were people who I couldn't identify myself with, because those depictions were so over the top and so exaggerated and so flamboyant and so obviously in your face, like, this is who I am, look at me, pay attention to me. And so I couldn't really correlate who they were and who I was, because I've always been like more laid back, more introverted, more chill, I was never that kind of big personality that I saw on TV. So it was really hard for me to see myself and to understand what being gay and being like me, which in my mind I thought was out of the norm, because all TV ever showed me was, you know, flamboyant gay men. And so I didn't really know where I would fit in.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, like I said, I'm gonna try to keep this portion of the conversation short. I had my first crush on a guy who I was on the football team with. For privacy reasons, we're not gonna get into his name. I think I might have said it in the video before. Oops. But yeah, so that's when I really understood that, like, here was this person who looked like me, who was everything I was and had everything I was, and I was so enamored by him, and I was so infatuated, and I knew that he didn't think that way about me. But when you grow up in an area or in a space where there's no other people really like you, and you're not really out because you haven't really had that conversation with your family and yourself, you just kind of try to stay stealth. You try to stay under the radar. So I knew I liked him. I knew I had a crush on him, and I knew that he didn't feel the same. And so basically what I did was I had a journal that I would write it all the time. I think I showed it to you before. It's the white one with the green lettering. I would write in like everything that was going on at the time, and in that journal I could slightly express my feelings without flat out saying what it was.
So,
because I knew that if anybody ever found that journal and it would just outright say what I was feeling, that I would be ridiculed.
So even knowing that was a private journal, you still refused to say it point blank?
Yes. Because I was terrified. I mean, and I imagine most gay people have that level of fear at being yourself, but for me, it was a different level of fear. I grew up with a father who was pretty masculine, you know, he was in pro sports, he was very successful, you know, he was the epitome of what I saw as a man and what I aimed to be myself, because that was the only experience of a man I had ever had. And so I knew that at any point, if I was not like him or like what I saw him be, that something was wrong or something was off with me. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
So I knew that if I could share my feelings in my own private space, but still find a way to,
Make them appropriate.
yes, like encapsulate them inside of a world where I kind of called the shots, but could still sneak and be stealth, that I was okay with that. So I would write in that journal, you know, and I would say little things that I could still read back to this day and understand what I meant and know how I felt. But to anybody who would have read it outside of me, you know, they wouldn't understand. And unbeknownst to me at the time, I'm almost 100% certain my dad knew. But I think in the beginning, for him being a black man, having a gay black son, and not ever really having had that experience of having a gay child before me, I think he was uncertain and afraid. And that's a conversation that me and my dad have not had the opportunity to have. But when I do see him soon, and I know I will, that's a conversation I really want to dig into with him, and I really want to get his perspective and his take on that. Because I'd be interested to know what he thought and how he felt now that I'm older and I can really sit and have that type of a conversation without fear. So yeah, like I said, I would write in my journal, and that was like, you know, that was my release. So as I got older and I graduated high school, and I really was certain of that I wanted to at least find out if this is who I was. I just moved out of my mom's place and I was going to college, and initially I was living on campus, so I still couldn't really be who I was. But once I moved into my own apartment, that's kind of when I it's probably like after 2 months or so, I went out to the gay club for the first time. And it was so weird because I was by myself. It was awkward. I'd never seen anything like that, you know, and the scene was already established long before me, obviously. So when I walked in there, I felt like the one wet noodle in a bowl of dry noodles, because I did not feel like I fit in that space. And I think for a lot of black people,
Where did you go?
I think I went to nowhere first.
Okay.
I think for a lot of black people who are gay and male, if you didn't come up with other black gay people, trying to navigate that space is very scary, because you don't know where you fit in. Because when you think gay, you think white. I've always, whenever I thought of the word gay, I never thought of black gay people, because like I said, there was really no representation on TV or in media or in a lot of books that I could read to really explain to me what the black gay life was like. So, you know, I had family members, but I was never close to them, and I, you know, didn't know, you know, how to really express to them what I was going through personally. So for me, it was like, how do I do this? You know? But I kind of found my way, and I kind of started to learn where I fit in, and started dating, and, you know, really, and then that's when I really just had to come to terms with who I was. Because in my senior year of high school, like, I was sneaking around, you know, trying to meet guys and do the whole nine, and it was all weird and awkward and never really worked out. But now that I was in my own apartment, my own space, I was able to really find out what that was about. And so that's for me when I decided, and it's only been, 2020? It's only been maybe like 4 or 5 years that I've been like out. A lot of friends and a lot of people I've worked with in spaces like that had already known, but like being out to my family, it's only probably been about 4 or 5 years. And like I said, a lot of them I'm sure knew, but there just isn't that safe space. There isn't a space in the black community that feels honest enough and safe is the only word I can really use to describe it, enough for you to want to come out to your family. Because in a lot of communities of color, it is that stigma. It is that other, that unknown, and so it's not always accepted, especially, like I said, aligning it to religion. So for me, when I came out, I was terrified because I thought that nobody was going to want to talk to me anymore. I thought everybody was going to cut me off. And I cried for like the first 2 nights before I came out because I was at war with myself that much about doing it. But I was like, I haven't had a girlfriend or a boyfriend for that matter in 8 years. I've been single. Everybody's probably like, why the hell is this good-looking young man single, living in an apartment on his own, and he hasn't had a girlfriend since high school, you know? So I was like, at this point, it's like trying to live a lie, but doing it unsuccessfully. And so what's the point, you know? What's the point? Like, I'm not gonna do that to myself anymore.
Yeah.
And so I decided to come out. And we'll get into everybody's reactions and all of that later on down the road. But I want to let you kind of take over because this is going to be a little lengthy and I don't want to take over the entire conversation. So what's it like for you as a white man coming out?
I mean, it of course was a process, and of course I'm much younger than you, so I came out a lot sooner, I guess, if that makes sense, than you. But I never had that added fear of my skin. I never had that because, like you said, when I thought of gay, because as a white person, I go through life with a white experience and surrounded by mostly white people, so I didn't really have that. So when you explain that didn't click to me. I mean, it does now that you've explained it, now that I've learned a lot, but I didn't have that added fear of, oh, you know, white people have this reaction. It was just people. So you see what I'm saying? But when I was a kid, I was, you know, not super, I guess, I was relatively effeminate. You know, I love The Wizard of Oz, I love the Ruby Red Slippers, I love Jessie and Toy Story, you know, but that never really made me think of it, you know. I mean, I guess I thought I was different, and then, you know, growing up through school, all my friends were girls, and I was always kind of uncomfortable around boys. I don't know why, maybe I couldn't relate to them on a certain level, because I was never really into sports or masculine activities, but I never thought anything of it other than, you know, because I was super into school, and I was super into getting good grades, and being on the academic team, and the beta club, and the student council, and I had a lot of friends that just didn't happen to be boys, and I didn't really start to realize until, I guess, late middle school, early high school, that, you know, maybe I did like boys.
So when was the moment where it clicked for you? Like when you were like, okay, I am gay. When did you come to that conclusion?
Honestly, I don't think I've ever been honest with myself about that, because I probably knew in like 7th or 8th grade, but I just denied it.
Did you see it as a difference, or did you see it as, I know I'm gay?
Probably, I know I'm gay.
Okay.
And then I just denied that and pretended I didn't know that.
Okay. Because for me, it was like that awkward difference, but it wasn't, I'm gay. I
Yeah.
didn't like define that until high school.
Yeah, I think it came together in a way that, because it was like, I was different until I realized, but I never thought about being different. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I never thought anything of like, oh, you know, I'm this way, whatever. You know, I like, you know, girl stuff. I like dolls. I like, you know, hair, and I don't play sports.
But for you, that didn't feel like an abnormality. It felt like everybody else probably liked some of that stuff too, so you didn't feel out of place.
I mean, a little bit, because my dad, he's older, and, you know, he's a carpenter. He's always into sports. He's a pretty masculine guy. And, you know, there were things there, but there was nothing. I mean, there was some shame there, but it wasn't anything significant that I was like, oh, this is so bad.
Okay.
Until I realized I was gay, and then that's when I was like, oh yeah, no, this is bad.
Okay. Do you think a lot of that had to do with your parents' beliefs? Because I feel like for me, that was a lot of why I was so afraid. Was I knew what my parents thought of it, and so I was trying to navigate that fear. Is it the same for you, or was your fear from other things?
I think it was definitely at home, and kind of like you touched on, you feel like you'd be isolated.
Okay.
Not necessarily, you just be like, oh, well, we don't associate with that lifestyle. You know, I don't want to say I grew up in a homophobic household, but I did, because I don't want to put that on people who aren't homophobic, but they just kind of were part of it and didn't do anything to actively stop it. But there were people in my immediate family, you know, that are relatively homophobic, or were. Now they're, I guess, not so much anymore. But yeah, and like going to church and seeing like the study Bibles I had, because, you know, I used to be really into church and the Bible and everything, and just the way it talked about people like me, I was like, oh, well, then there must be a problem with me, and this is bad. So there was fear there, but like I said, there wasn't that added fear of, you know, I guess being white, I don't have to think about the fact that I'm already part of a group that is smaller and marginalized. So if I am isolated from that group, then where do I go? That was never a fear for me, because...
So you always felt like, even if, and correct me if I'm wrong, you always felt like even if you came out and were isolated from your family, you'd still have a place where you could go.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Because, I mean, like, looking back, I don't think that there was anything I watched that had an explicitly gay character. Not cartoons, not movies, but then, of course, in the household I grew up in, that kind of media wasn't really around, you know?
I mean, I think likewise, too, and I think for me, it was more of a factor of the time. For you, it was more of a family dynamic. So, like, we don't watch that as a family because we don't support that as a family. And for me, it was like, there just was none.
Yeah.
And like, maybe the one or two there were, like I said, I couldn't identify with.
Yeah.
So.
Actually, now that you said that, my parents, you know, used to watch Grey's Anatomy.
Okay.
And my sister, and I remember when it was one of the... They were still in single-digit season, whenever it was. It may have been like 4 or 5. Whenever Callie and Dr. Hahn kissed on screen, I think that's when my parents stopped watching that show.
So once it was like, we see this and we don't want to see this anymore. So I'm sure that for you, that just kind of reaffirmed that there was no place for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, I don't think I ever had such a bold example of there is no place for me outside of like I said, religion and the church. But coming up outside of my family, coming up as a black kid, there was always that instance. There was always, kids were picking on the more effeminate kid. They were teasing the more effeminate kid. They were bullying the more effeminate kid. And so I always knew in my mind, even at a young age, that who I was to a lot of people in my community was always a problem. And so I think subconsciously I kind of taught myself to be more masculine, to be more stealth, so that I could float through without those fears and without having to be the kid who gets picked on because they are other. So that's kind of part of, I think, for me being black and gay too, is just like, because, you know, there's the DL, black man. And so for me, it was like reimagining the way I really was or felt I was into who do I need to be
Mm.
to navigate these circles with comfort
Yeah.
and without questioning. I think that is a big part of. So okay, what was it like for you when you actually came out?
I mean, it wasn't a love signing story of my parents were just like, oh, this is great, you know, who's your prom date? You know, it wasn't, well, I actually came out after prom, but that's beside the point. But it wasn't like this love sign of, oh, everything. It was, and what you spoke so well to is coming out is so much more than just one day. You're like, oh, I'm gay, and then it's over. It literally is something you never stop doing. Like, you have to choose what parts of yourself you're going to reveal to people that you meet on a daily basis. And, you know,
And you know where, and just to briefly interrupt you, I blame that on straight people. I place the total blame of the who am I gonna reveal myself to, how am I going to do it on straight people. Because there's never been an instance in any job where I've worked where a straight person has not asked me, so who do you live with? Do you live by yourself? Are you married? Do you have children? Gay people don't ask that because we don't care. We don't care enough to want to know about what you do at your house in your personal time. We don't give a shit. Straight people always want to know, oh, so who are you, you know, who are you living with, and, you know, what do you do on weekends, and what do you do on your free time? I place that blame on straight people.
yeah.
Because if it was up to me, I would never talk about my personal life or work, because I just don't think that the two should be in the, in my opinion, they shouldn't be in the same space. There should be work, and that's all you need to know about me is work.
Yeah.
And there should be home. And if I happen to allow you to feel welcomed enough to get to know me in my home space, then I'll share that with you.
Yeah, and
So, but I'm sorry, go back to your point. I just had to.
I mean, that's true to an extent. I've been really lucky with my job where there's a really large LGBT community where I can feel safe and open with myself. And, you know, I have several coworkers, my boss, they love Jared. Talk about what's Jared, which I'm very lucky because some people are not that lucky.
Yeah, I've never had that experience at a job before.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that too, as I said, comes from being black and gay. Because people always assume, based on who I am, that I'm not gay before I tell them. And so they assume because I am a black man who presents perhaps a little bit more on the masculine side, that I have a girlfriend or that I have a wife or that I have kids. And so it's just their natural assumption, coupled with most black people are Southern Baptists or, you know, Christian Southern Baptists, and they have a problem with gay anyways. I think a lot of people feel safe making that assumption.
So you're like fighting more than one stereotype at a time. It's layered on each other.
Because if
so
someone says to me at the job, which I've had numerous times, and it's always a straight person, as I said, I place the blame on straight people for putting people in situations that make them have to reveal who they are. Because if we don't, then we lie. And I'm never comfortable lying. So, especially not now that I'm out and I am comfortable in the skin I am, and I accept me and I love me and I understand who I am and what I am. And so it's always that worry of, oh, when are they going to ask me? Oh, when is somebody going to suggest or assume? You know, at what point does my masculinity stop protecting me? And then the veil is gone and I have to explain who I am to these people who I'm not sure if are going to understand, accept, or fear and dismiss me.
Yeah.
And so even though we have those protections through the law, via the law, of being able to work without discrimination, there's still always that worry. There's still always that discomfort of when is it going to happen. But back to what you were saying. So you were coming out, and it wasn't this big welcoming environment.
No, and of course, I came out to different people at different times, but it was all within a short time frame.
Okay.
Are
we talking like days, weeks, months?
Probably months.
Okay.
Probably in a matter of months. I came out to my friends first. They were really supportive and great because they were my friends, so, and then I kind of was forced to come to my mom because she asked me point blank. And she'd asked me several times before.
Straight people, as I said. I place that blame on you.
And, my mom she didn't put me out. It wasn't the worst reaction, but it also wasn't the best. I'm lucky because she didn't put me out. She said, I think at some point she said something to the effect of, well, you're my son and I love you anyway. Which, is not ideal, because it's like, oh, I love you despite this, or despite...
So it felt more like she was saying to you, you're my son, so I have to love you anyway.
Kind of, but...
And less of, you're my son, and I still love you anyway.
Yeah, kind of, but like I said, my experience was very lucky, because it could have been a lot worse. And then after my mom, I think a month or two later, it was my dad who... He took it much better than my mom. But there were just a whole set of circumstances surrounding that too. That was a hard day. But not because of how he reacted, but he said something to the effect of, you're my son, I always love you, and I knew when you were 2 years old, and you don't know why you felt uncomfortable telling me, because it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. Which I did not expect out of my masculine carpenter, older, raised in the 60s, gender role, like super traditional dad.
So let me ask you this. Do you feel like your family fostered an environment where you felt safe enough to come out?
No.
Okay. So and that to my point as well, when parents in particular, straight parents in particular, you come out to them and their reaction is, oh, well, I don't know why you didn't tell me sooner because I already knew. And what you all have to understand, for those of you who are straight and are parents watching this, is that a lot of times you all don't create an environment where the reply that you're giving us is very simple, but the environment you're giving us is not that simple. And so you have to understand, for people who are trying to come out to straight parents who they don't feel like understand, you have to do your due diligence to create an environment where your kid feels comfortable enough saying to you, Mom, I'm gay, Dad, I'm gay, and knowing that your response will be that, oh, well, you should have told me because I already knew. Create that environment. I challenge you, that is your responsibility to create that environment for your child.
Yeah, and I actually asked my dad that a couple of days ago because we were talking, and he was telling me, you're my son, I love you no matter what. And he's like, I don't have a problem with it. I've never had a problem with it. Which one of my older cousins actually told me. He was like, when you were even young, before anybody even thought anything of you, your dad always, because he works construction, so he's got these hyper masculine men. And he's like, he would always say something to people that had something homophobic or bad to say.
That's good.
So, but anyway, I asked him, he was like, I just said, if you knew, and you say you knew, then why didn't, and I said, I'm not faulting you, I'm just wondering, why wouldn't you have done more to be make me know that what I am is okay? And that, why wouldn't you have created that environment? And, of course, he's not perfect, and he's much older, and so is my mom. They're much older, so they were raised in a different time, which is a flimsy excuse anyway, but, I don't fault them for that.
Okay. So, one of the, in my opinion, being gay and black, one of the biggest things about coming out is, as you said earlier, when you felt that if your family shunned you, you still have somewhere to go. So, or to an extent.
Yes.
One thing about being gay and black is, and coming out, is the fear that once your family is done with you, society is done with you. Because you don't have, especially if you're someone in my circumstance who doesn't know other gay people or never really been in the scene or in the crowd or what have you, you don't have a space that's left for you. Because the only space that you could occupy was the space of being black.
Yeah.
And when you can't even be good enough to be black, where do you go? What do you do? You know, how do you live comfortably anymore? You know, when you're cut off from your family and society already sees you a certain way. So that was one of my biggest fears of coming out. As I said before, my coming out was like, it was like almost a decade of things happening. I mean, that I could go into detail about, but there's not enough time in my camera to talk about the distinct pieces of each segment of my life. And maybe in videos in the future we'll get a little bit more into that. But so I came out on social media. And I'm going to tell you why I came out on social media. I came out on social media because I felt like that was the one space where I could tell everybody at once. I didn't have to go through the discomfort of telling every single person in my life separately.
And I hate that puts the onus on you. That puts like the responsibility on you when it shouldn't be. Like, oh, I would have to sit down and make everybody comfortable with who I am, and I hate that that's what...
Especially when you come from a bigger family, because I know for your family, there's only a few of you all, you know, who in your immediate family. For me, it's a lot larger. I did, however, have the luxury of having a sibling who was already out before I was. So the conversation between me and my mom was probably a little more comfortable than it would have been, had that not been the case. My mom, let me just say, is very loving and accepting, and she's just a very open-hearted individual. And so my fear wasn't that she wouldn't accept me totally. That was a portion of my fear. But the bigger part of my fear was disappointment. Because you never want to... especially because I was the only boy. So, and then that's the same thing in your case. But being the only boy and telling your mother that basically the only boy you have who you've always had the assumption of carrying on your portion of the family's bloodline is a lot more likely to not do that now, because I'm not going to ever really be with a woman on that level to procreate. And that's not to say that I can't still have a kid, but as far as like the whole family dynamic and raising a family, and you know, that, so the fear of having her go through that experience was more of what I worried about. So as I said, I came out online, but my mom was one of the only people I actually talked to on the phone regarding like everything that, because at the time I was living in my own apartment. And she was very open and loving. Of course, there still is that space where her religion is always going to cause her a level of discomfort, because she fears that I might not go to heaven, or you know, or what have you, because of who I am. But she was still very open and accepting and loving, and by that point, I had prepared myself in my mind that if she wasn't, I was going to be okay with her saying, well, I can't accept this and you can't be in my life. And I had mentally prepared myself through the 2 days of crying. I was like, okay, I'm ready for this. If this is what happens, I'll be okay, kind of thing. So coming out for me was, I feel like almost the same as for you, but more of a, like I said, for me it was more of a disappointment, less of a worry of anything else with my mom.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it was a little bit of disappointment for me, but that was not my primary concern.
Okay.
I don't think well, I can't even say that. I'm trying not to project my current feelings onto what I would have felt back then, because right now I'm like, I don't care who I disappoint, I'm living for me. But of course back then when I was much younger, we all have that, desire to please, especially your parents. But no, I don't recall having the feeling of, I'm gonna disappoint somebody. It was more of the being disowned, I guess. That was mine. But yeah, it was a process over several months, and I mean everybody's fine with it now, which there's nothing to be fine with because this is how people exist in the world. So I hate even saying that because it just
times are just different now. Back 20, 30 years ago you could be killed for and
you still can in some
can
places
today, but it's a lot more safe and accepting, at least for gay people, for gay men and gay women. For trans people, that is not the case.
No, that's still
and so we're definitely going to have a conversation, as I already told you guys in our last video, about the trans experience and what it looks like for gay people to support trans people, because we can't really speak from the trans experience because we aren't trans. But I have reached out to some trans people that I'm friends with and family, and and asked them to point me to sources and things that will help me to be educated to speak on the matter. And so in the future, at some point, hopefully in the next couple of videos, we'll have that conversation. But yeah, so now you guys know kind of what our coming out was and was like, and a little bit more about us in that regard. To anyone who may be watching, if we are lucky enough or blessed enough to have a youth who is watching our channel and comes across this video and has not had the opportunity to come out or to live in the fullness and the largeness of who you are without regret. Hopefully this conversation has helped you in a way. There are always sources that you can go to, websites you can...
It Gets Better, the Trevor Project.
There's a lot of stuff out there for you, and we'll put some links in the video or under the tagline or what have you. But just know that no matter what the outcome is or what it will be, it's never the end just because you come out. There's still so much more life to live, so much more for you to do, and I promise you there will be a time where you live in a space after coming out where you are happy, where you are successful, where you feel like you are living your life to the fullest. So don't ever think that that is not in the cards for you. And to those of you who are living currently under the veil of stealth,
it's your choice.
It's your choice. But let me be clear, it's time. We do not have to apologize for who we are. We don't. If your worry is that when you come out, you are going to be shunned or not accepted or what have you, that is a conversation you have to have with yourself first before you make the decision to come out. But you cannot continue to live under a cloak of darkness, because for some people, unfortunately, that leads to them not wanting to be on this planet anymore. It leads to them feeling like they just want to end their life because they can't be who they are. And no one should ever feel like that's the only option. So you can always reach out to us in the comment section. You can always hit us up on our Instagram. The link is in our bio. Send us a message there. Any way that we can help or facilitate you to feel more comfortable coming out or be a support system for you, if that is what you are trying to do or planning to do and have not done yet and you're worried about what the outcome of that is, reach out to us. That's what we're here for. I do hope that this conversation has helped interracial couples better understand what it's like for your partner on both sides of the spectrum. There's a lot, as I said, there's a lot more in-depth conversations we could have, but we just don't have the time. We'll have to do it in future videos. I mean, there's a whole conversation of, for black men anyways, the barbershop, you know,
I think you should do a solo one.
I mean, that's fine. I'm totally up for that. But there's a whole lot
have a
more
place in that conversation.
Yeah, there's a whole lot more conversation of what being black and gay is like, and hopefully in the future we'll get to dig into that a little bit more. But yeah. So, as always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below or in the corner or wherever I decide to put it in this video. And we will try to continue to put out content for you all. Understand that in no way this video was meant to be dark. It just was, it was to help facilitate a space for people and help to let you in a little bit deeper on who we are in our life.
Yeah,
So.
and I think for people that, I mean, I don't know that we have any straight followers, but for people that may not be, you know, straight, and even for me as a white person, even if the video is dark, it lets us in to know, hey, some people have it hard. Some people have it harder, you know? So a straight person might be, oh, that is dark, but sometimes the experience is dark.
Yeah, it is sometimes. It is sometimes. And our job is to break down the barrier of that darkness at every turn. And in any opportunity we have, our job is to chip away at that wall to let a little bit more light in. And so hopefully this conversation has done that in its own way. And yeah. So until next time, as always, we will see you when we see you. And wear your damn mask.
Please.
Bye.
You should have voted too, whenever you can.